Happy Tuesday. Wise Guys is here on the last day of February. We're ready to usher in March, one of the most exciting months of the year. Dave McCann, Blaine Fowler, the Wise Guys from our undisclosed location here in Provo, Utah. And we welcome everybody in around the world on Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, ysguys.com. We got a lot to get to tonight.
Yeah, I worry about security because I feel like we're giving more and more hints every week.
The helicopters
of where
above
our undisclosed location
alarming.
is. People are eventually going to figure it out. So, hey, it's tournament time in Vegas. This week, you and I are heading off. Tonight, we'll roll out the lineup for the WCC Championships at the Orleans Arena.
Everybody's got a fresh start.
Yeah, coverage. Yeah, it's a new year. What was the phrase you used today?
A new beginnings?
It's a new beginnings, but we're not talking about young women.
No, it's not the other young women's
It's new
program.
beginnings for everybody. Dave and I will be down there along with Kristen and Spencer, and we'll be calling all the way through the
games,
semifinals and on the women's side and the first two rounds of the men's side.
Jerem Jordan and Tyler Haas will be down there for the bridge shows.
Yep, all the bridge shows, all the halftime shows.
So it'll be the full battle station of BYU TV for the last blast in the WCC.
Yeah. And people don't know this. We were just talking about it the other day. We went down and did our first WCC tournament the year before BYU was in that conference. We wanted to give them a little glimpse of what we could do.
It was a gift.
We went down and did that tournament. So we've been doing it longer than BYU's been playing in it, and this is the last year before we make that transition to the Big 12.
We'll walk in there and they'll go, "You guys are back." We'll say, "We're like Indiana Jones. We just keep coming back."
Yeah, Indiana Jones Part 13.
Yeah.
So, but we'll give you a little preview on both the men's and women's side on who the Cougars will face and how, some of the matchups in that tournament. Spring practice just around the corner. BYU defensive tackles coach Sione Pauha, right?
Pauha. There's a ha in there.
Well,
Pauha.
and here's the thing: you're supposed to pronounce every vowel, so it's Pouha. So it's Pauha. Right?
Yeah.
If we break it down.
That's exactly right. That's exactly how we might say it several different ways tonight, but we're getting it right.
He's going to join us in just a few minutes, about 6:15, so stay with us. And we're really excited to have Sione on with us and change the mentality of that defensive line.
We've had all the new assistants on, starting with Jay Hill, and we saved the best for last.
Exactly right.
And that's why we're doing that.
Former Cougar running back Kalen Hall will join us, father of quarterback Jaron Hall, who will be at the NFL Combine this weekend. Lots to talk about, not just about what Jaron's up to and what he's doing. We'll get an update on that, certainly. But we're going to reminisce a little bit with Kalen and talk about what it was like. Like, what great running back did he face head-to-head?
Marshall Faulk.
Oh, yeah, that's right, Marshall Faulk.
And they both had great
Faulk.
games. We're going to talk about that. And, Sione had some big NFL moments we're going to talk about tonight as well.
Yeah, we'll
Remember the Jets, the good Jets.
Yeah, the good Jets, which for a kid that grew up in New York, those are hard to remember, and they're very few and far between.
Let's see, there was Namath and Sione. Those are the two names behind the good Jets.
There were two times the Jets were good in my lifetime. It was when Joe Namath was there, Broadway Joe, and then the couple years that Sione was there. So we'll reminisce about some of that as well.
Here's the headlines as we say hi to everybody getting on our live stream around the world. Bring your questions tonight. We got a lot of good stuff. Men's basketball, they finished the regular season 17-14, 7-9 in the WCC. They rout San Francisco Saturday 87-61. They did a lot of good things in that game that should help them coming up Friday night.
Yeah, momentum will be carried in. First of all, let's talk about Rudy Williams, who scored 21 in this game, including 15 of 16 from the line. He really pressured that defense for San Francisco. They couldn't handle him. They couldn't defend him without fouling. That's the first start for Rudy in a long time. And Mark Pope has been talking to us for weeks about the tremendous contributions that Rudy's been making off the bench. He's been playing really well off the bench. The great leadership he's brought from off the bench, all of that Mark's been talking about. And it finally came time for Rudy to get back in the starting lineup.
Made a big difference.
And he was awesome. So Rudy was, I think, one of the big stories.
Fousseyni Traore had 17 points and 14 rebounds, just 10 turnovers, 22 assists on 30 made field goals. But I thought the big indicator going into the tournament especially is BYU, when they're motivated, can out-rebound teams that are taller than them. And they out-rebounded San Francisco by 20 rebounds.
42-22 on the glass. BYU was just a more motivated team. They made shots. And this game snapped a 4-game skid. They get some momentum as they go into the WCC tournament. It also, they could have been the 7 seed had they lost. Or, certain things that happened on Saturday could have been the 8 seed. They secure that number 5 seed which means they don't have to play on opening day. That's the big thing. But
Yeah.
almost more important than that is the matchups on the side of the bracket that they're going to get as a 5 seed. So much more favorable, and that the three teams that they're likely to face, the three teams that they could face, I should say, in the first 2 rounds, they've had great success against this year, and frankly, I think BYU can beat all 3 of those teams. So they'll play the winner of San Diego and Portland, right?
Yeah, BYU Sports Addict chiming in on the live stream going, they one thing he's noticed about the basketball team, so much potential that just haven't been consistent.
Right.
And having a good game Saturday and coming out and having another good game on Friday would be back-to-back good games, which they haven't had many of this season. That will be crucial heading into Saturday and then all the momentum.
So you and I have San Diego, Portland on Thursday night at 7. We'll be broadcasting that. And then at 9:30, we also have the 7 seed Pacific against 10 Pepperdine. You and I have that game as well.
So Pilots are 2-0 against San Diego, and the Tigers are 2-0 against Pepperdine, but those are 2 toss-up games.
Yeah, they really are. And frankly, of all of those 4 teams, the one that I think BYU struggles with matchups on the most is Pepperdine.
Yeah,
the 10
for
seed,
sure.
right? So see, it's more about sometimes matchups than seeding, right? And so they won't face Pepperdine or Pacific because they'll get the winner of the San Diego-Portland game. I feel really, really good about that. Then Friday night, you and I will have that second round. We'll get the San Diego-Portland winner versus BYU. I like BYU's chances against either of those teams.
They beat Portland and they beat San Diego.
Yeah, San Diego 68-48, so they beat them by 20. They beat Portland 71-58. And Portland had a few guys missing in that game, so that's maybe not the same Portland team. But the matchups are good for BYU. And then you and I will have that 9:30 game Mountain Time, Pacific and Pepperdine winner versus San Francisco, who we're familiar with. We just saw them the other night.
Yeah.
And that will lead to Saturday's quarterfinals, where if BYU were to beat, let's say it's Portland, who won both against San Diego this year, then BYU would play against LMU on Saturday at 7 p.m. Mountain Time. And BYU lost at LMU 64-59 in a game where they had the lead. They had opportunities. They lost the lead. They came back, and they lost in the end. But on February 2nd, so the most recent game at home, BYU pounded LMU.
Yeah.
89-61. I mean, it wasn't even a game from the get-go. BYU just ran them out of the gym. I like BYU's chances against LMU. And then you and I, then the 10:30 game would be the Pacific Pepperdine San Francisco winner against Santa Clara.
Yeah,
Santa Clara's the team I don't like BYU's matchups with.
And BYU doesn't have to, they're not on their side of the bracket. On Monday in the semis, BYU would be on the path of St. Mary's. That would be the early game on ESPN at 7 Mountain Time. Gonzaga is the 2 seed, and they will get likely Santa Clara, but that's the nightcap. And then the championship game is 7 o'clock Mountain Time on Tuesday on ESPN. So that is the men's setup, and it's the top dogs are at the top. Everything else is wide open.
Right.
Anybody can beat anybody.
And we've seen BYU, to BYU Sports Addict's point, play really well at times. And you know when they've played their best? Against Gonzaga and St. Mary's.
Yeah.
They seem to elevate their game against really good competition. And I like their match. Like, say they get to Monday, which is not out of the question. Now, do I expect them to beat St. Mary's? I don't expect them to beat St. Mary's.
St. Mary's will be on 9 days rest.
I would expect them to beat a Portland or San Diego. I would expect them to beat an LMU. I don't expect them to beat St. Mary's on Monday, but would I be surprised if they did? Absolutely not. They've matched up with them really well. They just haven't been able to finish games. If they could somehow carry some momentum into that game and figure out how to finish and make some shots down the stretch, that wouldn't be out of the realm of possibility. And then they'd face likely Gonzaga. And of course, Santa Clara is solid too, but Gonzaga handled Santa Clara during the regular season. So probably Gonzaga on a Tuesday night.
I worry about Portland.
Because they're getting some healthy bodies back.
They're all healthy now. They weren't healthy when they came here, and BYU struggled. Beat them by 10 on their home floor, but they didn't have Robertson, who's an all-league performer. They didn't have 2 other guys, and I worry about them on Friday night. We'll see. We'll get a look at them Thursday, and but Portland is a headache because they've got size and they have guards, and that's the one. I think I worry about them against Portland more so than LMU. because they beat LMU, as you mentioned, easily at full strength. And Portland, and it was a long, long time ago, back in December, and they didn't have their guys.
Yeah, and I feel like Portland didn't finish well. Even when they got some of the guys back, I feel like they didn't finish great down the stretch. And BYU didn't either, right? So to say, hey, Portland came in where they lost a bunch of games.
So did BYU.
So did BYU, and that does concern me. I feel like BYU did kind of right the ship here in this last game where they played terrific basketball. But I was just going to look at like Portland's down the stretch just to give you an idea who they played down the stretch and what they did. So they lost to Pacific last week, 81-77. San Francisco beat them 89-92. Santa Clara beat them 103-84.
Yeah.
St. Mary's beat them 81-64. So now I'm telling you, all these games they just lost, but they just played Santa Clara, San Francisco, and Pacific, all good teams. They were close in the Pacific and San Francisco games. They weren't close in the Santa Clara, and they weren't close in the St. Mary's game. And then they beat Pacific, and because their meetings were just 5 games apart. Back on the 9th.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting Friday night.
So it's interesting. Since they got healthy, with everybody but the top 3 teams, they've been close. But they haven't figured out how to win those games. That's why I think BYU, even if it's a close game, what BYU just did Saturday, I think helps them a bunch.
Got to figure out how to do it again.
Right.
Women's basketball is 14-15, 9-9 in the WCC, and they played on Monday yesterday. Portland beat them here 61-49. Portland had some travel issues back on Thursday, so they moved it to Monday. But Lauren Gustin had 24 rebounds, and in that game, she set the single-season rebounding record at BYU, passing Tina Gunn, who held it for over 42 years. And Lauren was here a couple of weeks ago. She just continues to rebound. That's what she does.
So you and I were at the game. We weren't calling the game, but there were some people that weren't familiar that were sitting right behind us. And one of them looked up and said, does she have 20 rebounds? And we go, yeah, but she's going to get a bunch more because there's still some time left in this game. And she ended up with just a mere 24 in this one.
Women's pairings on Thursday in the first round. It'll be the 8 seed Santa Clara and number 9 Pepperdine. All these games on BYU TV. Number 7 St. Mary's and number 10 LMU. The winners go to Friday. Santa Clara and Pepperdine will play BYU. Whoever comes out of Santa Clara and Pepperdine, they will play BYU. And then Pacific will host the nightcap. Quarterfinals, San Francisco and San Diego. Those are the 4 and 3 seeds. They'll be waiting for the winners on Saturday on BYU TV. Monday's semifinals, where the top seeds come into play. Gonzaga and Portland. BYU's in the line of Portland.
Right.
Beat them twice. Although the game was tight yesterday, they'll have to go through the pilots. And then it would be fitting to have another game with Gonzaga to wrap up the league, because BYU's women's team and the Zags have battled almost every year.
It's been a big time rivalry. We got to hand it to Portland though. We talked to Coach Meeks after the game Monday night. They've been playing without their starting point guard for the whole second half of the season, and his daughter has filled in and been really, really solid. But they lose their starting point guard and they still finish second in the league, and it's because I have a rooting interest because my niece is on the team.
Right.
So Alex Fowler is one of the best players.
Who probably will be the player of the year.
Yeah.
Should make a case for it.
Yeah, one of the best players in the league for 5 years now because of COVID. She could be the only 5-time first-team all-conference player in WCC history.
Not many people get 5 years.
And she's actually, we should explain, she's not really my niece, but she was so good her freshman year, and we were doing the tournament, and we had Portland a couple times, and she came up to do an interview, and I said, hey, Alex, I'm Blaine Fowler. I'm your uncle from Utah. And she thought it was serious. She goes, really? And I said, no, not really. But if you keep playing the way you're playing, I will claim you from this point forward.
I heard you.
She's all conference every single solitary year. So when we saw her on Monday night, I said, hey, Alex. And she turned and she looked at me and I go, your Uncle Blaine? She goes, oh my gosh, yes, of course. How are you, Blaine? And she talked to me, gave me hugs. So I even though she's not my niece, outside of BYU, I have to root for Alex Fowler, my adopted niece from Australia. She's a great player.
So you can see her on BYU TV on Monday. Some football news as we bring in our guest tonight. Spring practice starts on Monday. That's March 6th. That's next Monday.
Crazy.
And the NFL Combine for Jaron Hall and Puka Nacua is Saturday in Indianapolis. For Blake Freeland, it's on Sunday.
We've got BYU Pro Day coming up on March 24th. So if the players that aren't in the Combine, in fact, some of the guys from the Combine do come and do some of the things in the Pro Day for BYU, maybe to improve a time or show something they get to show. We're going to have also later in the show, Kalen Hall, Jaron Hall's father, and he's going to come talk to us a little bit about Jaron's preparation for this week.
We'll ask him about his ankle, see how that's coming along.
BYU Spring Scrimmage is March 31st. We're going to cover that on BYU TV. So we're going to do the Spring Scrimmage. Most of the Big 12 teams do this, so we're going to put that on national television, that Spring Scrimmage, and that's going to be really fun, and that's followed by one of our favorite events, right?
The alumni game out at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. Dewey Gray, who was on the show, committed on Instagram that he's playing in the game. So number 5's coming back for another time at Lavelle Edwards Stadium. We're excited about that. Still waiting for the announcement on the quarterbacks, although we know who they are. And I think, Sione, you saw, we can't say because the athletic department told us not to say who the quarterbacks are for the alumni game yet. But you guys were looking at the rosters for that today. Gavin told me so. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
Let's just say the quarterbacks playing in this game are as big time as they get.
Yeah.
We'll just say
you're going to want to be at the stadium. Our first guest tonight is the new defensive tackles coach at BYU. He's got a lot of history with the Cougars. He played 8 seasons with the New York Jets. Zach Wilson's on the Jets. His parents were immigrants from Tonga. BYU head coach Kalani Sitake was born in Tonga. His wife's maiden name's Kafusi, and there are 7 Kafusis that have played at BYU while other Kafusis coached here. So it's only fitting that he comes out of retirement to coach at BYU. It's a pleasure to welcome Sione Puhuha to the Wise Guys. Welcome.
I love it. Thanks for having me. Glad to be here.
Tell us about what Bula is. Let's just get
let's get right to it. What is it?
Bula.
How did you create it? What is it?
Well, Bula originated around about 2008 and actually takes root in a kava drink that originates from the South Pacific. And so just to make it a little bit more simpler and easier to get to, I just thought, hey, let's try to develop this. And called my agent. He had a buddy who'd worked for Pepsi for a long time, called him and just asked him the process. And he kind of mentored me through it and kind of took that all the way to about 2012.
So you've created your own beverage?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And how can people buy it?
Well, it's no longer in production anymore, but at the moment we were in Smith's, we were at Mavericks, we were at C-stores and gone from Utah to Arizona to Nevada, California, even all the way back to the island of Tonga. And so we got pretty widespread, but after playing, it was kind of just, let's kind of
You retired the project?
Yeah.
Dave thinks he invented Diet Dr. Pepper. He thinks he invented that.
Not the diet, the real stuff.
Oh, that's right. He won't drink the diet.
Okay.
No, Blaine likes the diet.
I drink the diet.
Would we like Bula?
I think you would. Yeah, I think you'd enjoy it. Tastes a little bit like Diet Dr. Pepper, a little bit.
Oh, we might.
Really?
We might have to try.
We have to track some down.
I haven't tried the kava.
It's got to be on Google somewhere, right?
Yeah. Somebody's probably vintaging it somewhere.
When I heard that Katie was part of the Kafusi clan, that's a family that our family's really, really close with. Yeah. So I'm wondering the connection. How is she related to all the Kafusis that everybody knows around here?
Including the mayor of Provo.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay.
Including Michelle.
So Michelle's husband, Steve, his dad, his name is Betelo, and my father-in-law, Isi Kafusi, so they're first cousins.
Okay.
So their dads are brothers. They all come from a little village called Koloa in Vavau in Tonga. So if you know all the people from there, they're related, and so that's how the Kafusi clan is put together. And so that's how my wife is related to the Kafusis that play.
That's here. A little better than the story of Vi Sikahema tells that everyone's his nephew.
Right.
Yeah.
Like every single.
We call him on it sometimes. We're like, okay, Vi, how is Sione your nephew? He's like, well, it's too complicated. We're like, Vi, you're not the uncle of everybody from Tonga.
When Jay Hill was named the defensive coordinator, he calls you up.
Yeah.
You answer the phone, and when you answer the phone, you are a retired football coach. When you hung up the phone, were you still retired? How'd that conversation go?
Yeah, I take it into consideration, right? So we were going out to St. George, and I knew that there were a couple of people who were applying to be the defensive coordinator at BYU, and so someone gave me a call and said, hey, what are you thinking? And Jay was one of those guys, and so I didn't really think too much about it. So my family and I went for a quick staycation in St. George, and Jay called, and he was asking where my head was at, and I just really kind of just felt his energy, right? And so Jay obviously had some great history with him. He was a GA while I was up there as well, and just kind of like revealing what he was thinking, his vision, and I just got caught up in it, and it's been a great thing ever since.
How did when you hung up and you're caught up in it now, how did you explain that to your wife?
So my wife was on the phone call as well.
Oh, so Jay said, I need to talk to you and Katie.
Yeah.
Smart man.
That's a smart man, right?
So both of us were in the room, and, he just talked to us about what he thought, his vision, and, paired with what Kalani had, what his vision was. And so, I mean, there was just a bunch of energy about it, and I attached to it, and it's something I took a lot of interest in. And so my wife and I were just talking, as we always do, it's always a family decision. So we brought the kids in, and said, hey, I'm thinking about going to coaching. And, they were like, oh, Dad, you're going to leave? And I was like, well, this is the place where it's going to be. And so things just started to unravel and started to happen after that. And now we're here.
So the kids grew up on Utah football, obviously. What do they think about that? Are they like, whoa, wait, we're going to BYU now? Jay has history. Jay grew up in a BYU family, which he never revealed until he was long gone from Utah. But he grew up in Lehigh, and his folks were BYU folks, and so this was just like a coming home for him. But you went to Utah and then went on to the pros. What was that like for the family?
Well, for our kids, I mean, obviously they've grown up as Utah. So my wife and I got married. We had our two oldest boys at the University of Utah. Yeah. And so they've always seen Dad, wearing the drum and feather. So kind of everything was always Utah entrenched, right? And so after, 8 years playing, and we came back and getting this phone call, I asked my kids, but I think they kind of saw past, because they kind of saw like, wow, Dad kind of has a little bit of energy. Like there's something a little bit different about his aura, right? Yeah. And I was like, dude, I want to be a part of this, right? I want to be able to contribute as much as I can. And so with our family kind of took a vote. We've gone through this process before when we were coming from Navy to University of Utah when I coached at Navy. So we brought the family together, got on the bed, and we're like, hey, here's the situation. What do you guys think? And so all our kids were like, so everybody closes their eyes and we say, okay, everybody's going to vote, right? From 1 to 10, like, where are you at? Where are you at with this decision? And everybody voted a 10 out of 10.
Oh, that's good.
That's awesome.
Now, here's the other thing is that we called our son, who's on a mission in Birmingham, Alabama, on a Monday, and we told him about it, and he was like, wow. That's a change of events, right?
He was a little more surprised.
Yeah. And so he says, just trying to really absorb all of it, right? And then he calls the following week, and so we just, we got his, he wasn't a 10, he was 1,000. He was like, Dad, I just love the way you feel. I like your aura. I just like the energy. I like your excitement. And so that's what kind of sold everything. And so we're all in.
That's awesome. Now, you mentioned Navy, and you coached with two dear friends of mine. So you coached with Kenny Niumatalolo, who I've known for years. His son Va'a played here. We got to know Va'a. What a great human being. Va'a is really good friends with our son Gavin that you coach with now. And so you had a stint there, and then you were up at Utah with Kyle Whittingham, who was my roommate. We just lived right down over here.
Don't disclose the location.
That's right. Thank you, Coach.
We won't tell, because
sometimes we get pretty loose.
Well, I have to tell you, Nancy still lives there. Drives around the neighborhood in a golf cart, and we see her. We love her. She almost prevented Brenda from marrying me because she told her she should. What are you doing, committing to one guy? You're too young. I was like, you're killing me here. But I'm interested to know what you took from each, because two tremendous coaches, and Kenny and Kyle. What did you learn from your experiences with those guys that will help you now as you start a new chapter?
Yeah. First and foremost, just great legends, right? Those two names are going to go down in history as legends in coaching football. And so it definitely was an honor for me and a blessing for me to coach under both of them. The number one thing that the core denominator that I can learn from both of them is being very authentic to who you are and your methods and how you deliver that, and owning your vision, owning your values, and being able to develop that through the culture that you have. And so both of them in their own right have been able to do that, really identify, hey, this is our vision, this is what we believe in, these are our values, and this is how we practice them. And so being very authentic, very real, very genuine, you feel that from them. And that's why they produce the way they produce. And so being authentic to who you are, understanding what your values are, having clarity and being able to deliver that is something I learned from both of them very well.
Sione Pauha is the BYU defensive tackles coach making his debut on the Wise Guys. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and wiseguys.com all around the world. When you communicate with defensive linemen, is it different than the other players? What is the key to their development in the trench?
Well, I think...
Except for kickers, because we know they're good. But we're talking about regular players, okay? Regular players.
Yeah, it's just what I've talked about with Ken and Kyle, right? Is really having a culture in that room that will that will feed the behaviors that you want, right? The type of mindsets, the type of attitude, the approach to the game. And so, in our defensive room, we definitely have a vision. Champions, alpha, have that type of mentality, and then have the values that support that. And then every single day, just practice that every single day, right? So for us, our values are just being tough, being physical, and being skilled. And so we go every single day. We just try to practice what we preach, what our culture is, and then hopefully that shows up in who they are, and then we're able to perform that way.
So spring practice starts here next week. How do you feel about that group up front that you have, and what are some of the key things that you feel you need to work on during spring ball to get this group ready to play in the Big 12 next fall?
Yeah, well, we've had 7 weeks of lifting, so we had a chance to be able to implement the culture and the mindset that they need to have. Now it's time to take it to the next level and put it with the X's and O's. Now we're starting to install defenses and starting to understand offenses and starting to get into the schematics of things. And so now just piecing all those together in terms of building, right? The product that you see on Saturday really is just days of just engineering and refining and engineering and refining. And so spring ball just gives us another opportunity to throw in that element of X's and Y's going against offense and defense and develop in that way. So that we're in that phase right now.
As for the schematics to stopping the run, and stopping the run was a big problem last year, where does it start? Where does a good run defense start?
Being assignment sound. Right? Being assignment sound, understanding where your fits, what your responsibilities are, and being able to execute the right technique to be able to take care of your job. So with our guys, we give them an assignment and we give them an alignment, an assignment, and a technique to be able to do it. And so you got to be meticulous in being able to do that. Okay, where do I line up? What am I responsible for? And how do you want me to take care of it? And so as a coach, what we got to do is just really just sharpen up on that. So being very sound in terms of your assignment, alignment, and technique.
So but what about big, mean, and nasty? Do you have to be those three?
That comes into it too, right?
Yeah, that's kind of the motor behind the vehicle, right? You got to have all those together. And so for us, again, like I said, you got to be tough, and that's where the meanness comes in. Now, tough for us is a little bit different on defensive front. We're really just talking about performance over the weather that comes with a football game, whether you're playing in Texas in 110-degree weather, or you're playing here in winter, or you're playing third and short. And so toughness really is being able to be elite at the different weathers that you have in football. And so that's where the toughness comes in. And so it doesn't matter if it's 1st and 10 on the first drive or we're in the third overtime game, right? You should be able to perform that. But that happens in January. And so that's spring ball is a good time to be able to say, okay, here's the next phase where we can develop that toughness.
And Sione and I were talking before he came on, and we have a common friend, one of my old teammates that he met when he was with the Jets, Bart Oates.
Yeah.
And Bart started at center for the Giants and won a Super Bowl there. He's a Pro Bowler. He goes to the Niners. He was Super Bowl there, and he's a Pro Bowler with the Niners. So a great legendary player. Now he's with the NFL Players Association. But when you talk about meanness and toughness, anybody that has met Bart Oates goes, no, that guy couldn't have been, like, he's the nicest guy in the world, right? He and Michelle are the nicest people in the world. He's just so mild-mannered. But that guy just stepped off that white line onto the inside of that white line.
Once that mouthpiece went in.
And he was nuts, right? He would dominate people and just with a smile on his face, just be running people into the ground. And you're thinking, wow, he's actually got a screw loose and he's really nasty. Is that something that somebody's just born with, or can you teach that to these D linemen to be good guys off the field, but to be able to play with emotion and passion on the field? Somebody like Bart, you're just like, man, that dude has a gift, right?
Yeah. Well, I think it's just a really sharp knife, right? You've been able to really just get really good at your craft, and then when you get out there, that's what it looks like. But to them, it's a work of art, right? It's a way that they perform, it's a way that they execute their plays, and so for us, it looks really violent, right? For Bart Oates and for great players who are able to do that, for them, it's their masterpiece, it's their profession, it's how they do things. For us, we see a lot of guys colliding, right? But for defensive linemen, we see guys colliding. They're getting a half a shade. Their hands are in the right place. Their feet's following them. Their frame is all together. So for them, it's really melodic, if that makes sense. There's really a method and a flow to it.
We had Kelly K-pop on, Kelly Papinga.
Yeah.
Was it last week or the week before? I think the week before.
I think so.
And we were talking scheme with him, and we said, what differences will people see? And he talked about, and I want you to explain this for the interior lineman a little more, that in the system they've run in the last couple of years, There was more where the D-line would have to come off and try to be violent, but control the offensive player and then read and flow. And he mentioned that Jay's philosophy is a little more, hey, you got one gap, get upfield to the gap and create havoc. What does that mean to people that are listening and watching us tonight?
Yeah, so, a lot of people think that we just kind of collide. When we talk about, like, gap integrity, make sure we get our fits. Now, Rex Ryan would like me saying fits because he doesn't really like
he doesn't
fits,
use
right?
that word.
He doesn't use that word. So we have different assignments, right? And so for us, we have 1.5 assignments. And so we're assigned a gap, but we're also assigned kind of like an offensive lineman. We've got some guys in the back we got to protect. And so we're not only taking a gap, but we got to make sure that we disrupt the blocking combinations that happened. So we're not just in there just, hey, we're just going to fly straight, because what happens is then the offensive lineman will come back and go to the linebacker. And so you get a hat for hat. Anytime offense gets a hat for hat, it's a win. So for us, it's disrupting the blocking combination and at the same time keeping our gap integrity.
Kyle's defenses over the years, and Morgan runs the defense, but I'm still calling it Kyle's defense, right?
Yeah.
And Kalani's when he was there. The inside backers make a bazillion tackles. This is the reason why, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't get offensive linemen comboing down to them. They're too engaged with the block eaters up front, and then those backers can flow freely and quickly to the ball. Is that the concept?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the concept. With the linebackers, what they read, they attack what they read, right? Mm-hmm. And so they've done so much game study, and Enna does a great job. Kyle, being a linebacker himself, understands that, hey, once you read, go and hit it, right? So it's a combination of my ability to read it, but also my guys up front giving me the time to read it. And then when I read it, just fire. Right? Yeah. If that makes sense. And so that's what makes it stout.
With Kalani, the marching orders have been get bigger, stronger, faster, because you're going into a league that's bigger, stronger,
Absolutely.
faster. So when you recruit a kid to BYU, where do you start?
There's a lot of different factors that go into recruitability of someone, right? You can look at the measurables, you look at the size, and
right.
Those are obvious factors. But you also look at at like kind of the footprint. What kind of footprint do they have with us? What kind of connections? And so we get those players. So once we find that fit, then we start the recruiting process, right? So a lot of it has to go with evaluations, and wish there was a cookie cutter way, right? But everybody's kind of cut differently. Everybody's recruited differently. Everybody responds differently to different things. And so that's very important for us to be able to go know who the player is, know who the high school is, so then we can know what the approach is to be able to best recruit them.
So we've heard you're a great recruiter. So a kid gets to you, and he might be on the fence, and you're going to talk to him about why he should play at BYU. And you've only been at BYU for a few months.
Yeah.
But you know the culture and all of that stuff.
Absolutely.
So how do you do it?
You find out what's important to the person, right? And you got to do a lot of listening. And so you sit down there, you got to realize what's important to the person. Because sometimes as an older person, you think we do know kind of insight to the future, but only they know what they like. And so if you take in recruiting, as much as we give out, right, we just have to take in as well. Like take in as much information, know what they like, know what makes them tick, know what interests them, and be able to formulate all the great resources we have here at BYU to say, hey, we've got the exact fit for you. And I'm going to set it up for you. Okay, you're in business. Okay, here it is. You want to go into this department? Here it is, right? And so it's really just listening to what they want, what the parents want, what their needs, solve their problems. Now we're kind of getting into business ethics, right? Yeah. Find the problem, solve it for them, give them the solution, and say, hey, I'll be right here to help support you.
Yeah,
sign me up.
Yeah, I'm in. Sione Pauha is on the Wise Guys with Dave and I tonight. We're so glad to have him here. He played for the Jets between 2005 and 2012 after being selected in the third round of the 2005 NFL draft. So now we're going to take you back in time. 2008, you bring down New England's Matt Castle for your first NFL sack. Yeah. Do you remember that play? What happened?
Actually, I don't remember that play.
That's your first
Come on,
sack?
that's the first one.
I think I was just happy to get off the field, to tell you the truth, man. Yeah, but those are memorable moments. When you get those sacks, I'm sure I have the ball up in my office, kind of hanging in there. Mm-hmm. But when you get a sack with those guys, and when you get a sack period from a defensive tackle, right? Especially in my position, because I was a zero, so true two gapper, right? It's always one for celebration for sure.
When I talk about block eater, he says he's a 0-2 gapper. I mentioned block eater, like that. His job was to just eat up blocks and steamroll people back.
All right.
That's not an easy job.
So the first sack is kind of in the gray area of remembering. Let's go to 2011, a little more recent. You tackle Kansas City Jackie Battle in the end zone for a safety.
Yeah.
So what was the feeling you had bringing a guy down in the end zone?
Oh, yeah, I knew the play. I knew what the play was going to be. It was going to be like a direct run, and so I already knew the blocking scheme, and so I just.
Is that just from the scout process?
Just scouting, just from studying film. I knew what the block. I knew when they were backed up, what their number one run was going to be.
So they give him the ball, and you're going.
Yeah, they gave him the ball, and as soon as I knocked back the center, I was like, "Oh, there he is! Right, let's just go ahead and take him down." I thought I had a good celebration. I just waved at the crowd. I remember my nephew was there, and my wife and kids were there, and so
hey, that's 2 points.
Some good memorable points. Yeah.
Hey, when you know the scout, and you know what you're doing out there with confidence, you make plays. We were talking to Max Tooley about his pick six in the bowl.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, as soon as they went to this formation, and when the guy motioned away, I thought, this is this play. And he says, so as soon as the quarterback raised his arm, I just broke on it and took it for 6. And we just thought, preparation, right?
Yeah.
Preparation gets it done.
Yeah.
Kyle Van Noy is going to be on the show next week. Awesome. There's another guy with instinct.
Oh, my
and
goodness.
Preparation.
And preparation.
Yes.
Found a way to be wherever the ball is.
Absolutely.
For a long, long time.
I always say you can never outperform your preparation, so make sure that's up there.
That's good. That is good advice. You can never outperform your preparation. Well, you finished in the NFL with 263 tackles, 4.5 sacks. Was there a specific play that you remember the most?
Not really.
Now you were in 2 games where if you won those games, you're going to the Super Bowl.
Yes, I do remember. Right, so Ben Roethlisberger, right? He has to score first. He has to get a first down, right, in order to finish the game, eat the clock up. If not, we're going to get the ball. Mark Sanchez and the team marches it down to be able to win it for us. And we were just rolling. I mean, we had Santonio Holmes, Jeremy Cotchery.
Good team.
Really good team. And so I just remember wrapping around, and I was running after Ben as fast as I can. And I pushed him out of bounds, and he just lobbed it and then ended up getting it to the tight end for a first down.
Oh.
And I looked up, and I said, wow. That's one for the books, man.
Was he as hard to bring down as he looks like on TV?
Yeah, that's
Just
a
that
big guy.
big.
Yeah.
He's a large human being for that position,
that
right?
can move as well. So
Yeah, he was. Yeah, especially in his younger years, he could.
Yes.
For the size, he was crazy skilled.
And you served your mission to Pittsburgh, so it all comes full circle. You're trying to get
full circle.
the Steelers out of the Super Bowl. One thing you've managed to do is balance your faith with football for all of these years, even now as you serve in the stake presidency in Draper.
Yep.
How have you managed to do that?
So I don't think it's a balancing act. I think it's a centering act, right? You put your faith at the center, and then everything kind of revolves in it. And so things either fall in or fall out that are supposed to happen to you. So if and I've been asked that question about, how do you balance it with what you're doing? And I think the most appropriate word would be that more centering it. How can you center your faith, make that the center of your life so that all the decisions and all the priorities around in your life fall into that faith of those values that you have faith in. And so
did NFL locker rooms make it harder, or was just not a big deal?
And I think that's just really in the movies. When you're in the NFL and you're in those locker rooms, you got a lot of mature men in there, right? You got fathers as well, and everybody knows that, hey, we're there to feed our families. And so I know the movies and stuff might have a lot of flair and stuff going into it, but there's a lot of great men in there, and there's great diversity in those NFL locker rooms, and everybody appreciates everyone, everybody respects everyone, because everybody can learn and have value from each and every person in that locker room.
When you were with the Jets over that time, I'm assuming guys knew that you were a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. It sounds like they respected that, but people knew, right?
Yeah.
So
did you have any fun reactions?
Yeah, well, they were like, wow, we got a 24-year-old 88th draft pick. What is this guy going to do for us? And I just said, there's probably some values that I learned on a mission really early on that I could probably, help out with the team. And so, just being an older guy and having kids that were already in elementary and stuff. So, that was kind of fun. But again, all the locker rooms are so diverse. I mean, you're dealing with veterans that have been there for 12 years. I mean, I went in there, Curtis Martin's in there, Kevin Mawai. I mean, you've got some wise heads, and then you've got some younger guys. And so everybody just learns to really just appreciate and support each other.
We have quite a few people that live back in the Metro New York area. Where did you guys live when you were with the Jets?
So we lived, we were first at Hofstra. Okay, I got drafted by Herm Edwards. And so we practiced at Hofstra. home of Wayne Corbett, you know, and all
Right.
that. And so, you know, Ty Pennington. And so after that, then we moved over to Florham Park. That's when we moved over to Jersey.
Yeah.
So I played at the old Giants Stadium and then now at the Meadowlands. And so I was part of that transition that took place.
Was
So
Vi a state president back there in your area
I think
at the
so,
time?
yeah, because he was in Philadelphia,
Yeah.
and so you know that was just a train ride away.
Yeah, 90 minutes away, really.
Just, it wasn't too far away, and so you know going from Herm Edwards to Eric Mangini to
Right.
Rex Ryan, and kind of going through all, it was really fun to have all those experiences.
Yeah, what a
Sione
great
Puuha is on the Wise Guys tonight. Former state champion at East High School in Salt Lake City. Leopards won it in 1996, which presents this question. BYU went 14-1. They're ranked number 5 in the country that year. So why didn't you go to BYU?
I didn't get recruited by BYU.
Really?
Yeah,
mistake.
yeah.
Obviously, right? Obviously.
What, did it tick you off, or were you just, you know what, East is right next door to the U, and that's what I'm going to do?
Coach Ron McBride, a great recruiter, you know, a great friend,
Yeah.
just a great connector with people, and so I had developed a great relationship with it. But I never got recruited by BYU. My best friend is Jason Kafusi,
Yeah.
brother of, and so both of us went to East High School, and so we didn't really get anything.
Interesting.
Yeah. If
Sometimes
anything
we
at all.
just miss down here.
Yeah, you know, you do miss, right? Sometimes you miss. You just don't know. Or you.
But I
all of a
love
sudden
that. I
you go
love
like,
that
hey,
I love that 2022 recruitment for sure. Yeah. I'm glad we're here.
That seemed to work out.
Yeah,
I'm
for
glad
sure.
someone called you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So and Ronnie Mack, like we've had some great interactions with
Yeah.
Ron over the years. Like when he and Lavelle were in the driver's seats, the rivalry had a tone to it that was really fun.
Yeah.
You know, those two were dear friends.
Yeah.
Yes. And that kind of made it fun, and they'd rib each other and
Yep.
have
And
fun
they would
with
have
each
those.
other.
They'd have those magazines, right? Paint the town red.
Yeah,
paint the
yeah.
town
It
blue,
was
and
it was a great time. And then it got kind of where it was like almost like an ugly rivalry for a while. It feels like, I don't know if it feels like this to you as well, that with Kalani and Kyle, who are also really dear friends, that the civility of the rivalry seems to, maybe not for some fans, but inside, the coaches are friends across the board, almost all the in-state schools. Do you feel like it's a little kinder and gentler outside of the fan bases with this rivalry with Kalani and Kyle at
you
the
know,
helm?
granted the history and the connection that everybody has, and kind of like the cross coaching, and this guy's been experienced here and stuff like that. Still gotta understand everybody's competitive.
Right.
Right, everybody's still competitive, and everybody's still trying to win that game. And so when we get on the drawing board, or we have an opportunity to be able to compete, there's still that competitor at the core
Right.
of all of that happens. And you know, amongst all the fanfare and stuff, it's really about, hey, let's compete, man. We want to compete.
Speaking of the competition, you're a freshman at Utah in 2001.
I remember this one.
You watched Gennaro Guilford make the game-winning interception in front of a sold-out Lavelle Edwards Stadium to seal the win for BYU. If someone would have told you at that moment that someday you'd be coaching with Gennaro and for BYU, you would say,
all right. I never thought in a million years.
Yeah.
Right. You know, I never when I was, when I kind of went away from coaching, when I went away from University of Utah, I never ever thought that this would ever happen. Right. 10 months after that, Kalani would call me and all the transitions would take place, and Tom Homo and the team would give me a chance to I never would have imagined. Right.
oh,
I take it back to the faith part.
Right.
Put that at the center. Don't balance it. Put it at the center. Follow it. Follow that as a guide, and things will come into your life that things are supposed to happen. People will come in. Events will happen. You'll have great mentors and tutors like Kalani, Ken, and Kyle, and all those things will happen.
And it's fun because they had a family council on the bed, too,
Yeah.
right? Which is keep it at the center and have a family council, and the good things were happening. You were back in 2003. Played a role in the lowest scoring game in stadium history. I remember that game. I
was a
worked
snowy
that
game.
3-0, and the Utes win in a snowstorm. What was that like out? And that was a miserable day. But
Yeah, that was right. And so it was really snowy. I know Paris Warren got really close to scoring a touchdown, and he slipped. But you know, it's 3-0, and that game is always a great game, right? Especially when it's at November. Right, the last game.
and it means something.
Yeah, and it means something, and it's always great to be able to have that. And when you could have competition like that, you know, it's all the more for the fans. But you know, that was a cold game. I
yeah,
remember.
yeah.
And it was colder for BYU fans because when you're ahead, it's not as cold. We've learned that in many broadcasts over the years.
Yes,
where it's like weather's miserable, but it's a little worse for the team that's behind.
Yes.
So that's for sure. That's
All right,
for sure.
let's do 5 questions. We'll get you out the door. Kalen Hall's standing by, and we're excited to visit with him.
Yeah, we always do the 5 questions. You don't even think about them. You just answer them quick.
All right,
so
whatever comes up.
So this is how people get to know you. Although I feel like we got to know you really well.
Okay.
By having you here for the last 30 minutes. Favorite sports movie?
Rudy.
Who just last week said Rudy?
It's a lot of Rudies.
Who was on last week? Derwin.
I think Derwin
Gray said Rudy too. So, favorite singer or band?
Ooh. Fiji, the artist.
Okay, now this is what I don't know. Fiji. What kind of music is it?
So it's like island reggae, and he's one of the legends that kind of uprooted that.
After he gets hopped up on Bula, he's able to play his.
And Bula is a Fijian word.
Interesting. So we were over in Oahu a couple weeks ago, and I decided I wanted to listen to more island music. So I put on Common Kings, and then the kids were like, "Dad, Common Kings have a really cool island vibe, but they're from SoCal. If you want to listen to somebody from the islands, put on Jack Johnson." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, Jack
And
Johnson.
Jack Johnson's from the North Shore. I'm like,
and
okay.
he's Jack Damuni's buddy, man.
Yeah, there we go. So
I'd go on that one. I'd go double, right? So I'd go Fiji, and then another Islander guy would be Josh Satofi. So
Josh Satofi. Okay, I'm gonna try both.
Okay.
Favorite breakfast cereal?
Ooh, Rice Krispies chocolate.
Chocolate Rice Krispies.
See now,
Nice.
when you just went Rice Krispies, I was a little disappointed. But when you added the chocolate, I'm all in. So
Because then you have to dump so much sugar on it if you're eating them
Yeah.
the
straight.
regular Rice Krispies takes like 6 teaspoons of sugar to make them okay. So, but the chocolate, you're all good.
Okay.
Favorite Kalani Sitake moment?
Favorite Kalani Sitake moment. Okay, so here it is. So I think it was like 2007, 2008. It was that Kansas City game. We come back and it's the off season, right?
Mm-hmm.
I walk into Kalani's office and he goes, "One of these days I'm gonna get a chance to hire you."
Really?
Is that right?
Yeah.
And you said at the time,
And I was like, "Oh yeah. You know,
of course,
coach,
yeah.
You know, and I'm still playing. He's still coaching up there at Utah.
Yeah.
And I still remember that comment. And I was like, okay. And then, when 2015 happened and things happened, I was like, okay, maybe. And then fate just happens.
so when you walked in the door, having accepted the job at the football office, did he go, see?
Did he
I told
remind you, or did you remind him of that moment?
I haven't even reminded him. This will
You
probably
got to
be the first
remind
time.
him.
Yeah,
You got to remind him.
I'm sure
So-
he's had a lot of conversations like that before.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Do you have a favorite quote? We'll end with that. A favorite quote?
From Kalani. There was a quote that he gave at the bowl game. I think it was during media day, talking about Christ being the center and what we represent. And I love that. And it kind of goes back to the faith thing, right?
Right.
And him being the foundation, and I just love the ability to be able to share the things that you're faithful about, right? Just because you're faithful about it, not as a proclamation to say, hey, everybody should be like, hey, this is what makes me tick, right? And so having him do that, and those are some of the things that I get excited about, right? As they call it. So
And it can be right out there where you're coaching now, which
Absolutely.
is really neat.
Yeah.
And it's embraced and expected at BYU, which is a really neat culture and environment to be part of. And Kalani's made that way. Really cool. I liked Sione's. It's a philosophy that you can never outperform your preparation.
Yeah.
That's something to remember too. I'm gonna remember that as well. That's a great. Keep your faith at the center of everything that you do. Don't try to balance it, and then. When it comes to playing football, you can never outperform your preparation. That's a couple of great learnings for us today.
thank you.
Plus, it's nice to meet a nice warrior
Hey, okay.
because you have to be a warrior at tackle in the NFL.
Yeah,
Right? You just have to be.
Yeah.
And yet, how can you be so nice at the same time?
I don't know. I guess it just works itself out. Man.
Yeah, there you go. Well, because he can take out all his aggression on the field, and if you play that many years in the NFL, you can just leave it all, and then you can just be a normal person.
Well, kind of
So-
like I said, like I said before, from us it looks like aggression, right? But to the person, it's a martial art. It's an art, right? How they kind of go through it. Like we'll watch boxing, we'll say, "Oh, Mike Tyson's so," but dude, he's like really philosophical. He's got his timing right.
There's a
And so,
plan.
yeah, he has a plan, and the way they just carry it out, just like a martial artist.
beautiful.
It's great to have you here. Welcome
Thank you.
back,
I
or
appreciate
welcome
it.
to Provo.
Thank you.
Yeah.
we
And-
love being here.
Well, welcome
Good.
to where you
Good.
should have been. In what year did you graduate from high school?
1996.
1996, 97.
96. So that's where you should have been back then. Someone made a mistake, but all mistakes come around to where they're supposed to be, and now you're where you're supposed to be.
Granted, everything happens for a reason. We're glad to be here.
And that preparation, the path you took, prepared you to have a tremendous impact here. We're excited for you.
I'm looking forward to it.
We'll see you at practice. Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great to have you.
Sione, the defensive tackles coach at BYU, and big star at the Jets, and just bigger than life. And Blaine, you and I've heard all the stories. The guys resonate around him.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And we already hear players and I run into some of Sione's guys. They're at work at extra time. And some of them are married, so they're not just going to Vasa to find girls to date, right? They're actually there with their spouses lifting. I can tell you, Tyler Batty's, Elena, his wife, she's not tall enough to play D-line, but that girl is in unbelievable shape and has one of the strongest set of legs I've ever seen in my life. She give him a run for his money. But I see the guys and I say, "How's it going?" And I run into Josh Larson all the time and his fiance, and to a man, they just talk about, "Oh man, I just connect so well to Sione." He takes the extra time to talk the tiny little things in technique, and I just feel like I'm going to be a really, really good player under his tutelage. So it's just fun, and they just love him.
Yeah, I thought we got a good taste of that, his communication skills. Next week, Kyle Van Noy will be with us, and we'll also recap the West Coast Conference tournament, which starts on Thursday on BYU TV. And then in March, on March 14th, a couple of former BYU TV guys, Michael Miner and Russ Merrill, who were the pioneers in the development of BYU TV sports, especially live sports, and David Phillips, who's the current guy in charge of all that. They'll join us on March 14th, and we'll kind of have a history lesson as to the technology of broadcast sports in regards to BYU as they hand over a lot of things now to the Big 12. And that's going to be a fascinating, reminiscing special time.
You and I, we went to lunch with the two of them to talk to them about the possibility of coming on. And about 2 hours later, when we had just reminisced about some of the biggest moments in the history of BYU sports, where they were front and center covering it, every one of them, whether it was live broadcast of it or there with cameras to document it for BYU for the archives and to have it for later. Every major thing that has happened in BYU sports, those two, for the last 30 years, and Russ for even longer than that, have been a part of. We got done with a lunch, and then you turned to him and said, "This is the show." When you guys come
by the way, this is the show.
That's what we're going to do, because it's going to be really fun to take you back and say, we can just go, where's Walt? Where were you when Ty Detmer won the Heisman Trophy?
Yeah.
Because they
were there.
Put the broadcast together so that Ty could be live from Hawaii on the broadcast. And there's many, many more of those. We'll take you back to some of the biggest moments in BYU sports history.
So that's March 14th. Chris Hoke, two-time Super Bowl champion with the Steelers, will be with us on March 21st. And then on the 28th, Elaine Bradley, the drummer for Neon Trees, will be here. And our friend Max Hall will be back with us ahead of the alumni game.
Wait, are you giving it away?
No, I'm just saying he's on the show.
Oh, before the alumni game.
Yeah. He's the defending champ.
Here's the thing. We're not going to tell you who the other guys are, but everybody knows that Max is going to come back and defend.
You have to after you threw a Hail Mary.
Defend his Hail Mary to Brian Keel and defend the championship.
So we'll get Max on, and then we'll have Max talk about the matchup.
So my thing, when we bring Elaine on, she's one of the greatest drummers in the world, period, right? Do we have a drum set here for her of any kind?
No, she could pound on the desk maybe.
Oh. Maybe, hey, Jack, can we get a video of her playing drums? Maybe
she's gonna be great.
She is ridiculous. We're one of the greatest drummers in the world. The drummer for the Neon Trees, Elaine Bradley's coming on with us on March 20th. It's gonna be fun to have her.
Our next guest, as you see him settling in, is a former Valley Viking and Gatorade Player of the Year in Las Vegas, Junior College Player of the Year at Dixie in 1991. Ran the ball for 2 seasons at BYU. Married a BYU gymnast. Created 3 more BYU athletes, including quarterback Jaron Hall, maybe 4 more as we run down the family, which we will in just a little bit. A pleasure to welcome former Cougar Kalen Hall to the Wise Guys. How you doing?
Doing quite well. How are you?
Good. What do you think of Sione in that edition on the defensive line?
You were here and got to listen to him for a little bit, right?
Sione is a great guy. He's an amazing addition to the staff. His value goes much deeper than his knowledge. It goes into areas in which people will learn to love and learn to see. And the depth in recruiting and just the whole making of the man is something that, the BYU fan base will truly embrace and understand how big of a signing that is for the program. So
when he's here, he played at Utah, obviously long after I played at BYU, and I'm like, man, I wish I was this guy's teammate. Like you can just tell he would have been an amazing teammate, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So-
It's great. Just a great person. Just a great person.
You listen to some guys, and Kalani has that gift, and you've had coaches in your life with that gift, and maybe you are a coach for other kids with that gift, and we'll talk about that in just a little bit, but it seems like he can get you to run through a wall, and that's different from someone just yelling at you.
Yeah, honestly, in today's world, kids don't really do well with just yelling and screaming at them. I mean, you have to find other ways to motivate them. And Sione is, just his personality is one that sends the message that he's someone who has your best interest in mind, and that he wants you to be able to have the maximum potential that you have come to fruition and come forward. And so with that being said, it's genuine and authentic. So it's easy for young people to play really hard for him, and it's easy for them to get more out of themselves when they know that this individual knows and knows that they have the ability, and he just wants the best for them. So
isn't it interesting? Like you and I both played for Lavelle.
Yeah,
we have that in common. We're always brothers because we played for the same father, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And Lavelle had that about him, right? Where you just there was never any question that Lavelle cared more about you, the person and what you were going to do and what you're going to make of your life than he cared about what was going on the football field, which allowed him then to say, hey, Jared, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And you're like, well, he cares about me, so of course I'm going to do it. Is that the hallmark of great coaches, that players know that they care? Is that the first step in being a great coach?
I think so. I think in lieu of all of the things that are going on in social media and how some kids get skewed with all of the fast-paced elements in life, I think it comes down just to the genuine nature of what people feel. And if you feel that this person genuinely cares about your well-being, then it goes beyond the surface elements that come into the sport in today's world. It goes beyond the elements in which I think young people get caught up in today. It allows you to really become vested in your future, because this individual, you can genuinely tell, cares about you and what your self-worth is to them and to yourself. And so I think it's just something that allows a player or a young man to feel comfortable and confident. So
Kalen Hall's with us on the Wise Guys, and we're going to talk about some great moments that you had at BYU, including the showdown with Marshall Faulk. That's coming up in just a little bit.
Yeah, we're going to talk about your kids. We're going to talk about, but then we're going to finish with let's reminisce about the days, about the good old
back
days.
in the day, reminisce. I love to reminisce.
We'll do it.
Top of the headlines is with your son Jaron, who is going to be at the Combine on Saturday.
Yeah.
And this is such a big next few months for him as he gets ready for the NFL draft. So first and foremost, how's his ankle?
It's doing okay. I mean, obviously, a high ankle sprain takes a lot of time. Especially when you're a force guy. What I mean by that is he throws with twitch and emotion and power and torque, and his lower extremities are, part of the things that really drive the ball down the field and allow him to boogie and dance laterally. And so high ankle strains are not conducive to doing those type of things, effortlessly. And so he's still, healing up. Obviously it's not 100% still, but, the people that know, and the individuals that have been around the game understand that process. And so he's just, he's been living in California, training for the last.
John Beck was on with us the other day.
Talking about us. John loves him and thinks his potential is just
Yes.
Sky high. How disappointed, because even with them knowing it and evaluating other things, he was having a phenomenal week at the Senior Bowl, and then he tweaked it, which kind of shut him down. Was he really disappointed? Because he was rolling that week.
He was. Yeah, he was upset. He was like, man, I'm putting things where I need to. The ball's flying off the hand. And bear in mind, he hadn't thrown a ball really in that type of competitive environment since the game against Stanford.
Oh,
Right.
wow. Yeah.
Because he only had a couple of weeks really to kind of train with John prior to the Senior Bowl. And so, he was started getting into the throws, but once he started to get fatigued, and then he tweaked it, and it was like, oh man, I'm not really able to, distribute it, the rock, the ball the way I want to on time. I mean, it's not the 7-on-7 stuff. It's team stuff live where you got to come off foundation and you got to make a throw where you don't know where the throw is going to go, right? Those are the ones that can typically, come off high or low because, you don't have the balance and the ankle's not as strong as it should be. And so, but he was disappointed. But you know what? It's okay.
The good news is that he had a few days where he was pretty sound, and everybody was going, whoa, he's looking great. And then the injury kind of took him out, but he had a chance to showcase it first before that. So that's the bright side of that, right?
Hey, and look, the metrics behind all of those things is simply this. He had 2 years of film that shows that he can make every throw in the book. He's bigger than a lot of folks thought. He's thicker.
They measure him all out. They're like, oh, he's taller than we thought,
he's
right?
He's taller, he's thicker, and, he could get thicker if he needed to. And so I think the important things in the interviews, he had a couple of GMs that said they were the best interviews they've ever heard.
We're not surprised.
So,
not surprised on that.
Not a bit surprised.
And really, guys, that speaks in volumes in today's society. When you think about a quarterback who's going to be the face of your franchise, it's going to be the foundation. You don't really want to deal with things off the field, or you don't want to deal with circumstances that could be suspect, right? When in that billion-dollar industry, they really don't have time to deal with those elements.
Right. So what does Dad hear about the draft and rounds and potential there? What's your take?
I don't hear and I don't listen to anything, because at the end of the day, it's like what I told, just even yesterday, I was telling Jaren, that's like, look, you're getting ready to go down to the combine. Just go follow your dream, right? Do what you do normally, what you've done since you were in 8th grade. Since you're 8 years old. Have fun, because very few people get the opportunity to go to the combine. Very few people get the opportunity to be pronounced one of the top quarterbacks in the country. Very few people get the opportunity to even be drafted. And so wherever the Lord has a idea of where and a plan for you and where you're going to end up being, then just know that that's where you should be, and it's going to be the best place for you.
It was interesting. We were talking to John, and John's like, I don't care where he gets to. He goes, I care more about the opportunity of where he goes. And we kind of got into Zach going to the Jets when we all had hoped he would have slipped one more to the Niners, right? And where he would have had a better opportunity with better players around him. So, but the hard part about the NFL draft is you don't get to choose, right? So you kind of go and make the best of the moment. And I'm certain that Jaren has that mentality, right?
It doesn't matter. And for him, he just wants to show everybody who he is and understand the fact that he's only really had a couple of years to put really into football. That's something that as the years go on, he's going to get better and better, because he is 110% all about the game of football right now.
And of course, Kalen's referring to the fact that he split time between baseball.
Yeah, he can hit fastball
and football, and was an amazing baseball player. Mike Littlewood told me, hey, if he could see this many pitches a year and bat, he's a high draft pick and can play Major League Baseball. He's a Major League Baseball prospect, and so he kind of split the two for a long time. And then it's just the last couple of years where he said, I'm going full go into this. And so what you're saying is, and you're the closest to him, that his upside potential is a long ways off, and he's already at the level to be able to compete, but his ceiling is really, really high.
High ceiling. At the end of the day, when you think about quarterback, and it's even reached down into the high school levels, even when Jaren was in high school, he wasn't going around doing all the combines and the Elite 11 things, because he was busy playing baseball, right? Yeah. And even kids that are playing right now that he played against, they were all just doing football stuff. And that even leaked into where he had a 2-year hiatus on his mission, didn't do anything. And then he came back and he was splitting time once again. So his entire career, he was only doing football primarily for the last year and a half or so. And so when you talk about the optics of reps and 1,000 hours of mastery, he really is just getting all those things started. And so
sky's the limit.
He's got a high ceiling. So.
Alabama's quarterback announced today that he's not going to throw on Saturday at the combine. And there are things that guys will and won't do. Is Jaren worried at all that the ankle might keep him from from doing everything on Saturday?
He's going to do what he can. You
Yeah.
know, at the end of the day, the optics are what they are, and he can't concern himself with that. He just needs to be in a position to do what's best for him and where he can make the best showing for himself. And bear in mind, he has a pro day coming later on at the end of March, which, again, gives more time.
For that ankle to heal up.
And the draft's not till the end of April.
And the draft's not till the end of April. And then you have the individual workouts. And, you know, there's a lot of elements still involved where those that are not really close to the game, who don't really understand the little intricacies that go into it. You know, it's a business that you have to make the right type of business decisions that are ultimately going to help you to be able to put on the best show when you're ready. So.
And it's interesting. People will remember that Zach Wilson's stock took its biggest jump during this whole process on his BYU pro day.
Oh, yeah.
With the throws he was able to make there. So what was the process like for you as a family, for him personally, as he was making the decision, do I enter the NFL draft? Do I come back and play another year in the Big 12? Take us through that process and how the family and Jaron arrived at what he wanted to do.
To be honest with you, it was a really tough decision for him, unbeknownst to me. I didn't know that he had second thoughts about entering the draft. I always thought, even before the year, that, you know, this was his last year, and, you know, regardless of what the circumstance is, he's going to go ahead and live out his dream.
Chase his dream, right?
Yeah, period. And so when he told me, you know, a couple of weeks after, well, a week or so, two weeks after the Stanford game, I was taken back a little bit. I was like, okay, it was literally the first time I'd heard that he was having second thoughts about entering the draft. And so, you know, I do what I always do. You know, I was like, hey, let's take the pros and cons. Let's look at the things that you believe would keep you in school, and let's look at the things that you would believe that would cause you to declare for the draft. And I said, ultimately, this is your choice. I have no skin in the game at all, because it's not my dream, right? I said, this is your dream, son, and I don't care either way. I mean, you come back, that has to be your deal, because then you have to live it. I'm not going to tell you to enter the draft and it doesn't work out the way you want, or I'm not going to tell you to stay and that doesn't work the way that you want. Ultimately, it has to be your decision. And so he took some more time after conversations with Coach Sataki and Coach Roderick, and he put some prayer into it, and he made the decision that was in his best interest for where he believed that he needed to be. And so, honestly, I didn't have an opinion one way or another, because I always initially, like I said, thought that it was a foregone conclusion that he would enter the draft. And so,
and I should tell folks, so Kaylin and I see each other. Kaylin and I see each other during the year all the time, and forever,
yes.
right? And we get talking, and now Jaron's the starter, and like we're I don't know how many games into his first year starting, and I'm like, hey, what's Jaron thinking about this? And Kaylin says, Blaine, like, we talk a little bit of football, but hardly ever. Mostly we're talking about kids, family, church, other stuff. He says he gets so much football that when we're together, I just need to be his dad, which I thought was really, really cool, by the way, and I've respected that. And
Where did you learn that? Because there's not a manual that comes with being a figure it out as we go, just like our dads did. But this is a lot of us want to just get in there and say, here, son, I think this is in your best interest. But you've had a very athletic family. You've had a lot of kids come through, and you go through collegiate sports. You know what it's like to be everyone cheering for you at LaVelle Edwards Stadium. So where did you get what you just said of, you know what, I'm smart enough or love him enough as his dad to just say, I support you, but this is yours?
you know, and just to be honest, I just I love the game, mind you. I love it. Absolutely love the game. But, you know, I love my kid more, right? And so I did not want all of this to be just about the game, right? Even though I'm so proud of everything that he's accomplished and the things that he's done on the field and the man that he is, but I'm just so much more proud of the fact that he's a good person. And I wanted to relish those things because so many other people, you know, they give praise about all the athletic things, and that's fine, that's great, because he's worked hard for that. But at the end of the day, man, he's a phenomenal person. He's an outstanding human being that loves others and puts others before himself. And those are the things that I wanted to make sure that he knew that I was proud of. Like some people would tell me often, I heard it many times, hey, you don't post about your kids, you're not proud of them, you don't put Facebooks. I say, you know what, guys, I'm proud of it, man, I love it. He worked hard. Darn it, that was expected. Those are expected results. That's the thing. And I always told Jaron, I said, Jaron, this is no different than we've always talked about. We've always known, regardless of what anyone else has thought, that you would be in this position. So I've given you praise many times, and he knows this. He knows. And the people that know us know that, hey, this is just a process of what we always thought was going to happen, regardless of what anyone else thought. And regardless of the circumstances, we always knew this was an ending of the story for his football career.
It's funny because I'd say I'd ask about something, Kalen would say, well, we were talking about this and this and this, but hey, you go to practice. You tell me what's about this. And I'd say, well, he looked really good doing this. He looked really good doing that. He goes, oh, okay. And then we would talk about family, right? So I learned a great lesson from Kalen over these last couple of years about how it really is supposed to be done.
Which of all the plays are you most proud of for Jaron at BYU? And I have an idea there might have two, but I'm thinking, but what do you think?
Yeah, I don't.
There were a few.
Hey, look, just to be honest, I don't know. There was a lot of plays, but I mean,
there's not one that stood out. That, like, for example, not giving up on the Arizona State interception, and it was Algier who made the phenomenal play. But Jaron had to run 60 yards to be there to get back on the ball, and I'm not so sure everyone would have done that. But that was him.
But again, that's expected though. Like I said, in high school, he threw 4 interceptions in the first half of a game. His sophomore or junior year, his senior or junior year, and he was a little upset, and he was taken back from that. And then I just went down and I said a couple of words. I said, look. You know what? That's a process of life. How do you react to that? That's the big thing. How are you going to react to this? Second half, he threw for 400 yards, threw 4 touchdowns, and ran for 2. And then he threw the game-winning touchdown with 10 seconds left to go in the game. And I was like, okay, well, that's like the expectation. So what? You throw an interception, you go run it down, right? I mean, if many of you look at the play, Jaron was coming up on the guy at Arizona State. Then he saw Algier ahead of him. Then he slowed down a little bit because you're like, okay, this guy is more physical than me. I'm going to let him go ahead and bang.
Wise move.
It was kind of like, okay, I think something special is about to happen. I'm just going to be around just in case. And so I did appreciate the effort, but that was expected, right? That was expected. If you did something to put your team into this situation, then you need to try to help the team get out of it. Just the bottom line. And then, I mean, obviously he made some throws. He made some throws. I mean, the Baylor touchdown he threw.
Oh, babe, that was beautiful.
The post pattern he threw to Keanu against USC.
Beating Utah was big.
He happened in 12 years, right?
Right.
And on 3 broken ribs, mind you, right?
Yeah.
Just gutting it out and playing pretty much flawless in the game that many people didn't give him a chance to. I mean, but again, it's just. He's my son, but man, the guy's got a lot of it factor. I mean, and once things get to a point where he's in a room with a lot of professionals, folks are going to see some stuff, right? So,
and there's a lot of guys that you and I know that can just sling the ball around. Mm-hmm. They can throw the ball around. They're great athletes. There's a lot of those guys. Is the it factor what's going to make the difference between him having a great pro career and an average pro career? Is that the difference maker?
I think it holds a lot to what's going to make a difference in his career. He's a special person that's going to work just relentlessly to be the best. Not going to talk about it, right? He's just going to go out and do it, right? He's not going to have big platforms for discussion. He's going to be a team guy first. But while he'll quietly be doing a lot of stuff that a lot of people don't see. And he's not going to care about the endorsements and all that stuff. He's just going to be the same guy that he's been for 20-something odd years. And so, the it factor is just, there's different elements to the it factor, right? And he has the athletic it factor, but he also has those other intangibles that go unforeseen to the blind eye, but to those that are really understanding of the game and understands that the NFL game is a different game, okay? You're going to have highs and lows. How are you going to react to the lows? What are you going to do when your chips are down, when you're down on chips, right? What type of reactions are you going to give to your teammates, to the franchise, to the fan base? And how are you going to, persevere through all of that? So,
are you ready to start talking about yourself?
Yeah, I don't.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. We're excited about this. Let's start with your family tree.
Yeah.
You got you and your sons KJ, Jaron, and Kyson all playing football at BYU. Kyson's a freshman receiver. Another son, Dawson's on the baseball team. Your daughter, Matea, is on the Maple Mountain soccer team. And your wife, Holly, was a former BYU gymnast. So is she the MVP, clearly?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, always. Yeah, she's the one to put
This
the
is
things
we've
through.
all always known.
Yeah.
If you look around and you just go, you know what? We are so blessed to have everybody in athletics. And it starts with Holly.
Starts with mom. Holly's she's a great person, first and foremost.
Yeah.
That's when my kids get their kind demeanors from, because she's just a tenderhearted and wonderful woman that puts other people before herself. And my kids have all taken a piece of that into their own personalities. And, she sacrificed a lot over the years. And my kids have seen sacrifice, therefore they're willing to sacrifice for others as well. So
Yeah, but your kids got some stuff from you, too.
Well, physically, these are two thoroughbreds, right?
Yeah.
So, and you put that together, and so physically they're going to be great. And then if they're wired right, then you've got something. So, we're talking to Kaylin Hall on the Wise Guys. So at 5'8", 195, you rushed for 1,359 yards and 13 touchdowns during the 92 and 93 seasons. Also caught 27 passes for 307 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, Dave and I wanted to reminisce about some specifics about the time. So September 5th, 1992, take a handoff from our guy, John Walsh. You run 22 yards for your first Division I touchdown against UTEP. Do you remember that play?
Yeah,
And
I
what
do.
did that feel like?
Oh, again, those expectations, right? The same things that I put on my kids, I had on myself. Like, I expected to get to the end zone. I expected to be successful. I expected to make plays, right? That's just one of those mindset things. It was a great feeling, but again, man, I expected to do that. I just needed the opportunity. I just needed the opportunity to run.
You scored a bunch of touchdowns at Dixie, but what was it like at LaVell Edwards Stadium to cross the goal?
It bigger crowds. The emotion, the energy, right, that you get from the crowd was different, just because there's so many people that were just excited and just 100% into the game and into the Cougar culture itself. Yeah. And so it was a lot of fun. And then, I was playing for people of my faith, and that had a little extra added, emphasis on being successful as well. So.
Yeah, the next week, so it's not even a full week, because you had a Thursday night game the following week against San Diego State. And now it's going to be a showdown. It's you, and we talked about this earlier. Mm-hmm. Yep. It's you and Marshall Falk. Oh, yeah. Head to head, running back to running back. You had 15 carries, 143 yards. Of course, San Diego State gave Marshall the ball 35 times for 315 and 3 touchdowns. It was a 45-38 shootout that the Aztecs won. I broadcast that game. Crazy. Oh, yeah. Well, first of all, what was it like to go back and forth? But we want to point out that if we're going to per carry average, Marshall only averaged 8.5. You averaged 9.5 in that game. So in my mind, Kaylin won the battle. Yeah. But what was that like because that's almost like, and I know it's a team sport, but you're the running back on one team, and you're having a great game, and Marshall's over there, and we all know how great Marshall was.
Oh, absolutely.
What was that game like?
Look, it was a phenomenal opportunity to play against a Hall of Famer, right? Obviously, being in the space of football, and we didn't have social media back then, but, you knew who the guy was. You knew of his talent. You knew of his NFL potential. You just knew where he was going to end up. And so at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm going to put myself against him any day of the week. Let's go. It was go time, period. It didn't matter the fact that he was a perennial All-American and any of those elements, because at the end of the day, you got to take, like I said, I have faith in 3. Like I always say about my son, I said, hey, I got faith in 24. Now, give me the rock, coach, and, let's see where this comes.
So you're watching Marshall run around, and, you're getting the ball when then the offense goes back out. Yeah. He has a big run. You go back out, and you're saying, all right, I'm going to get my big run.
Oh, absolutely. I just get like blow for blow, right?
like a title fight.
Exactly. But the only thing about it, that I knew Marshall had that 4.3 speed. So, so I was like, man, if I could only get a little more wind pushing down this way here, we'd be all right.
Was it Dewey that was telling us one time, I think it was Dewey that was saying, Yeah, the first 3 times I took an angle, I'm like, oh crap, that angle's not going to work with this guy.
Yeah.
Like, you just run away from people.
Did you get a chance to shake hands after the game? Do you remember that?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, Marshall's a great guy. He's a steward for the game, just a phenomenal person, and he's someone that I would consider a friend. From a distance. Although we knew each other just through the game and through mutual friends. Dewey actually played with Marshall at the Colts a few years later, and so it was fun. It was fun to be able to have that camaraderie back and forth. So
there's some times, and Reggie Bush did the same when USC came that one year, where even the home fans who are getting beat, but when you're getting beat by someone who's better, you tend to appreciate and go, you know what? I'm glad I had a chance to watch
this guy's a
him
Hall of
play.
Famer. You said that about Reggie when he was there. He didn't end up being because his career got cut short, but wow.
Tip your hat. Tip your hat to greatness.
Yeah.
Great things are things that you should admire and you should applaud. It doesn't matter what side of the bleachers that they're on. So
Let's go to October 10th, 1992. You and another Las Vegan, Jamal Willis, run all over Fresno State. You get 20 for 157 and 2 touchdowns. He goes 30 rushes for 129 and a touchdown on a day where the 2 Las Vegans gave BYU a 36-24 win.
Oh, yeah, I remember. That was a great day. Great day. Jamal's a good friend of mine to this day. We played against each other in high school, youth leagues.
So he was at Bonanza, right?
He's at Bonanza High, and we played against each other in youth leagues also. And so when I came,
how old were you when you guys first knew each other?
probably 10 years old.
Like Pop Warner, playing Pop
No,
Warner?
it was 10. 10.
And then they ended up together at BYU. How cool is that? That's pretty fun.
Absolutely. And I think, the paradigm of the offense kind of changed a little bit with Jamal and I. I think that Coach Chow and Reynolds and Coach Ramage, they kind of saw that to incorporate, dynamic running with the passing game could help us to win some games when it comes down to, being gritty and tough and being able to chomp down some of those yards where the passing game maybe was getting kind of bottled up a little bit because of the athletic deficiency, right, out there on the outside. And so I think that opened up their eyes. And Ronnie Jenkins came, McKenzie came. So we had some guys that came in after that ultimately, I think, helped to navigate the game into another level at BYU. So
We just had Ronnie on a couple weeks ago. It was really fun to have Ronnie back.
Yeah.
So October 31st, 1992, now you get 22 carries, 117 yards, 2 touchdowns. It's a 30-17 win over then number 14 Penn State.
Yeah.
I remember that. This is a big win. Penn State not only ranked that year, but a historic program. Was that a memorable one for you?
Yeah. I mean, look, Joe Pa, and I grew up before I moved to Vegas, I grew up in Michigan. And so that's Big Ten country.
Right.
Penn State's just right there in that region. And so it was a big game for me because ultimately that was a program that was storied. And the history behind Penn State was such that ultimately, you knew that they always had NFL guys. They were always playing on the big games at the national championships or whatever it may be. They're always sending guys into the NFL, and so it was huge. The history, and they had guys. O.J. McDuffie on that team, Grant Branch.
Yeah.
They had dudes on that team. Kerry Collins, so you already knew.
They had some guys.
You already knew. These guys are NFL guys. You're like, you know what? Hey, we can play just as good, but we just out here in the Midwest. So let's go. It was go time again.
In those kind of games, and in that one particularly, where they can't stop you, and they're out here, and it's the elevation and the heat. I don't even know, but for whatever reason, when BYU's offense is on the field, you're going to run all over them that day. Not many guys did that. Did you sense the surprise in their eyes, or what?
Oh man, you know what? Just being competitive, right? And like playing in the JC ranks, I played with guys and against guys from all over the country.
Right.
And so you get to know like competitors, fierce competitors. And these guys were, all-stars, and they could have been considered 5-star guys, all going to Penn State and whatnot. The storied history behind that. But on the field, it's like these guys, like, what is going on? We can't stop these guys, man. This it was like they were in awe because it's like this should not be happening, right? We're Penn State, they're BYU, and like how dare they just march this ball up and down the field on us? But we did, and it was because I think ultimately we had respect for the program, but not for the individual because they put their pants on the same way we did. Yeah. At least that's the way I looked at it. I was like, hey man, this is go time. Like they strap their shoes on the same way that we do. So the only thing that's different is the history, right? So
yeah, I remember. So, and I'm a few years before you, right? But we had this mentality that we don't care whether it's Ohio State or Penn State or who it is. We're going to show these boys how offense is played. Yeah. Like, we just always felt like we had the advantage offensively. And you guys were an offensive juggernaut as well. Yeah. Did you feel like you had that mentality too? Like, hey, we're going to it doesn't matter where they're from. We will teach them how you move the football and throw it and run it and do all of that because we know offense better than anybody.
Absolutely. I mean, we really believe that it didn't matter who we played against. We could move the ball if we put ourselves in the right position, if we executed, and if we played with, violent football, at the point of attack. And that was always the point. If we would play violent and we were crafty in our play calling like we always were, and if we executed that, we believe that we could score on just about anybody. So,
Kalen Hall's on the Wise Guys with us tonight. During your 2 seasons, you played in 22 games, 17 starts. You faced Notre Dame twice, UCLA twice, Penn State, and Ohio State. How big of a deal was it to play those schools and contrast it with this fall when BYU is going to play 10 P5s?
Yeah. Oh, so, I mean, you always want to play against what is considered the best, right? If you are a competitor, you always want to play against the best. And we had an opportunity to play some really storied programs, but, they were just sprinkled in a little bit, a couple this year, a couple that year. Now, when you take that and you say that, and it's kind of like when people ask me about, like, the last couple of years with Jaron, I'm like, look, it's arguably one of the most difficult schedules that the BYU's ever played. You don't
even have to argue it. Yeah. It's like Jaron's played against more P5 schools than any BYU quarterback in history. Yeah. End of story.
Yeah. And so my point with that was that, when you're playing against all that NFL talent, then you get to gauge yourself. Because it's not just the P5, it's all the NFL talent that's on those teams. Now you fast forward that to, we had 5 opportunities to play against a lot of NFL talent, like talent that was throughout the program, whether it's a freshman that's not playing or a senior. In the program, it's a lot of NFL talent. Now, what you're going to see here starting next year, it's going to be an awful lot of NFL talent that BYU is going to be playing against. It's going to be tough, okay? It's going to be really tough. And people have to understand that it's not about the program, okay? It's not. It's about the NFL talent that you're playing against. Because that NFL talent can be at, Liberty or whatever. But it's all about that NFL talent that's on those programs. And in the Big 12, man, it's going to be an awful lot of offensive NFL talent.
That's a great offensive league. And expectations, you don't have to put a number on games. We've already done a whole thing where we have to do the over under and all that. So we've had to prognosticate and go on record, but you don't need to do that. Just your feeling about this first year in the Big 12. Can BYU compete? Can they be in the middle of the pack? Like what's your thought on entering? It would sure help if they had a senior quarterback coming back, but
they went and got another one.
But they went and got a guy that has played against P5s his entire career. So hopefully he can engineer the offense and be poised. What's your thought on all of
that? Man, what I believe is what Kalani went out and did on his defensive side of the ball has incrementally increased the success ratio of what the win-loss ratio is going to be this next season. Bottom line. Absolutely love what he did. We're going to see the benefits of that immediately. And so seeing the benefits of that immediately, then we take X amount of those games and put them over here at Lavelle Edwards Stadium.
It's not easy to play there, is it?
It's going to be different now, okay? It's going to be some wins that folks didn't think we were supposed to get, and we're going to get them. And so wins, loss, I don't know, but what I do know is there's going to be a lot of surprise, especially when folks come over here to Lavelle Edwards Stadium. It's going to be some folks surprised.
Yeah, just like Miami was surprised.
Yeah, they were a bit surprised, weren't they? You are the new head football coach at Maple Mountain High School. Lavelle was a high school coach before he came, and your experience with him. As you are about to embark on this, how much will you rely on the kind of coach Lavelle was for you to get the job done?
So obviously you remember all of the quality moments, right, that Coach Lavelle had passed along to you, right, just through his teaching, through his actions, right. He wasn't a man of many words, but the things that he did embraced a lot of excellent qualities that men need to be when they're leading other young men. Yeah. And so from that perspective, I'm going to take a lot of that, right? I'm going to try to lead by example. I'm going to lead with passion and emotion. And emotions are different for everybody. Coach Lavelle's emotions were emotions of feeling, right? Because you knew that he loved you and cared for you. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to emulate, is the fact that, you know what, I'm doing this appointment. It's not a job. It's an appointment, right? This appointment to be the coach of my community high school, to be able to help to embrace better for the young men, right? And so you can only do that by showing them that you care, because the more that they know you care, the more they'll be willing to share their true emotions with you. And so that's really what I'm trying to embrace with the young people in my community, is that it's more than about wins and losses. It's about helping each of you to become better men. And that's real talk. And that comes from opening the doors for people at your school, from watching the types of things you say, from watching the things you do. When you're in the dark, it should be the same as when you're in the light. You know, making sure these young men know that every move you make is a scaled event, right? And that scaled event should be doing things of a positive nature. And accountability has to be there as well. Unfortunately, today, a lot of elements of accountability have gone out the door.
Amen.
And that's not with me. And because I told the principal, I said, hey, be careful what you wish for, because for me personally, it's accountability, right? I'm not a dictator. I don't get down like that, but I'm going to ask you to be accountable for your actions always. And I'm going to ask you to work to exhaustion always. And I'm going to ask you to be the type of person that you say you are always. And those things are not to say that, oh, you're an aspiring Division I athlete. It's not about that. It's about aspiring to be a Division I person, okay? If you can be that every day, or strive to be that, where you fall short, it's going to be pretty good.
You know, and it's a big, I think being a high school football coach is a calling. It's, you know, we all remember our high school football coach, and high school football coaches can have a huge impact on young men. Yeah. And parents need to remember that most of their kids are not even going to play Division I football, right?
That's right.
That's a big mantle to take on, to be that guy that for however long you're in that role, those kids look up to you, you shape their lives, you make them really have a big role in who they become down the road. Have you thought about all that and the weight of that mantle as a high school football coach?
You know, to be honest, I haven't. It doesn't, I don't know. I've been coaching high school kids for a very long time.
Right.
And I've never coached my own kids in high school.
Right.
That's right. I forgot about that.
And you waited till they're all gone.
Waited till they're all, I've always coached, but I coached at other schools while my kids played at the local school. And so I've always given of myself. And I think in this position, I can do it the way I believe that it should be done. Not to say it's the right way, but it's just the way that I believe that it should be done. And when I speak to people, for whatever reason, you know, some or many parents think that I have some secret formula, right? Because all 4 of my sons ended up going to Division I, right? And so I'm like, well, it's no secret formula. You know, it's hard work, it's dedication, it's you know, it's prescribed chaos at times, and it's diligence in doing the task on a daily basis. It's kind of like with Michael Jordan. He said that quote, "Today I'll do what others won't, so tomorrow I can have what others can't." Like, and I keep saying it to my kids, like, do the things when everybody else is sleeping. Do the extra work, do the extra training. Put in all the extra things that you know you probably should do, but other people aren't going to do. Because if you can do those things, you can be an excellent high school player. Now, to go to the next level, I mean, that takes some other
You also have to have good genetics to make it to the next level.
Yeah, it takes, that's
and your
some
mom and
different
dad, if
things.
they're both freakish athletes, that helps.
That helps.
Which
That
this
helps.
mom and dad are, right? That helps. But if you're just a freakish athlete, you don't have all those other things, you don't have a chance. And
Don't have a chance.
And you got to put those two together. So
Are you
great
prepared?
stuff.
Are you prepared to answer the phone on a Friday night at 11 o'clock from Jaron that says, "Dad, why are you running the ball on 3rd down?"
And I'll
Can
tell
he
him-
second guess?
And I'll tell him the same thing. Hey, mind your business. I'll tell him.
Hey, I let you play, and we just talked about family stuff. Don't be calling me and tell me what to do about
Mind
football.
your business. He already know. My kids know. I don't even care.
I love it.
Yeah.
All right, let's hit up 5
Yeah,
questions and
you
we'll
ready
get
for
you
your
out of
5
here.
questions?
Yeah.
All right.
Go.
So,
Let's go.
favorite sports movie?
Oh, remember the Titans.
See, those are the two. Those are our two most common of all the. And it's funny because even we have non-sports people on. We have musicians and astronauts, but we still ask them for their favorite sports movie. And those two, remember the Titans, and then Sione's Rudy are the two biggies.
So, but remember, the Titans has very little to do with football, though.
That's true.
That's kind of really the point for me. I mean, that's my reason is probably a lot different than a lot of folk.
Yeah.
So,
So no, that's awesome. I love that. I love that show. Favorite singer or band?
Oh man, Elvis Presley, my favorite singer.
So you're
school.
going old school. And,
We had an Elvis not long ago.
yeah, who was it?
I don't know. Was it Justin Enna? Was it Enna?
Yeah, I think Justin Ennis said it.
I love Elvis. Absolutely love him.
Favorite breakfast cereal?
Oh man, peanut butter Captain Crunch, I would say.
We've had a few of those.
Yeah.
He's just plain Captain Crunch, which I don't understand. But.
So you can imagine the shock on the show when Danny Ainge said shredded wheat.
And then we go, "Are you serious?" And he goes, "Well, the kind that has the
frosting on
it." But
And we put some berries in there.
Danny had some heart problems, and so I know that his dear wife is like keeping him on the straight and narrow.
Okay.
So
that's all right.
He's like, my favorite or what I actually get to eat? And then he changed. So, favorite BYU moment. And it doesn't have to be on the field. It can be any BYU moment.
Oh man, honestly, and it's a personal one. It's when Jaron had a long run against Baylor, had a touchdown run, and then Kalani was on the sideline just going crazy. And it was, for me, that was one of the moments that showed like the true emotions, right, of Coach Sataki and the history of excitement and what the game is really supposed to be about. So
that's fun.
Jaron ran that 40 in like 4 something, and Kalani was about 8.5.
That's true.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah.
So we're talking about Jaron. So what's the favorite attribute? And I'm sure you have one for each of the kids, and they have a lot. If you could pick out one about Jaron, what would be one where you're like, oh, this just really stands out to me. I love that about Jaron.
Consistency. His consistency of who he is. He's pretty much has been the same young person his entire life, and he doesn't deviate regardless of circumstance. So.
Yeah, we've had a lot of fun. We've had a lot of fun with him and great experiences with him. It's been fun for us to be close to him and cover him and
give him our best for Saturday and beyond.
We'll be rooting him on. We'll be helping cover the pro day and we're wishing him the best. We wish you the very best in this new role as the head coach.
Who does Maple Mountain open with?
Payson.
The Lions?
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
Hey, these aren't the same Lions as when we were kids.
No,
These guys are big.
Oh yeah,
That'll be something.
Be a good opener.
That'll be great.
We'll
Mountain.
We'll be
Payson.
watching Maple Mountain with great interest this fall, knowing that you're there. So we're so grateful that you would come on with us and share some time with us.
Thank you anytime. I appreciate it. Thank you guys.
The great Kalen Hall. We will cut you free and get ready for the big week. Hey, are you going to Indianapolis?
I'm not.
Okay.
I got too much going on. So.
Yeah, it's the life of a coach.
That's right. All right.
Thank you.
See you guys.
Kalen Hall, great number 24 for BYU. Took down Penn State and then Jaron and it's given us some great highlights. Dawson had some big plays last year with the baseball team and on it goes with the Halls. One of the when you think of families that have produced BYU football players in multiple,
Right.
there's the Fowlers, there's the Domans, but I'm not sure anyone has done more than the Halls.
Yeah, the Halls and the Kafusis might be right at the top of the list.
And the Halls, the immediate family.
Right.
And the Kafusis with the thousands of cousins.
Right.
And including the one that Sione married.
Yeah. We've got three that
three in there.
Three that played. So I don't know. We'll see. Like my thing is, hey, I want Gavin at some point to be the head coach here, and then we'll really leave a legacy. Then the Fowlers can really leave a legacy, right?
We can, and he'll get us tickets.
Yeah.
That'd be nice.
Once Gavin's the head coach, you and I are taken care of. So that's the key. It's always what's in it for you and me, right?
It is most of the time. Although we're going to spend all week at the Orleans Arena. So we'll try to survive that. Let's get a couple updates on sports on campus, and we'll wrap up with some final thoughts. It's been an awesome show.
We talked football. You want to pick it up with volleyball then. So volleyball, 10-4, 6-0 at home. They stay at number 8. They swept Concordia 3-0, 3-2 this last weekend in the series. This week, BYU's at Grand Canyon Friday and Saturday. That's on ESPN+. Their next home match is Ohio State at BYU on Friday, March 10th. I'm going to what matches am I going to? I went and talked to Sean after the game. Like, you know how you and I told Sean we're gonna be there. So I went to watch a match, and I walked up to Sean Olmstead after, and he goes, "You came?" And I go, "Of course, I'll be here more times." So I think I'm going to Pepperdine and USC. that are coming up here in March, and then go take those in. If you haven't,
Place will be rocking over there.
if you haven't been to a BYU volleyball game in the Smithfield House, you got to go.
Yeah.
I
You
mean,
haven't lived. You haven't lived.
It is an amazing college athletics environment that is second to none. It's pretty amazing. Yeah. And so we had a great time at the match we went to, and we're planning on catching 2 more in March.
Softball team's 8-5. They went to the Mary Nutter Collegiate Classic, went 1-3. Missouri, Texas A&M, and San Diego State got them. They beat Long Beach State. This week, they're at the Trailblazer tournament down in St. George, where I believe there's no snow in the forecast.
Yeah. Well, is there? Or tomorrow?
For St. George?
Yeah, but not this weekend. It's supposed to warm back up.
Thursday, they got a rematch with Oregon State. Friday, they play UNLV and Portland State. Saturday, Idaho State. And they're still hoping the snow melts for the home opener against Utah on March 15th, which is 16 days away. So
doesn't the field have heaters under it, like the baseball?
Not theirs.
Oh man,
Not theirs.
Yeah,
they got natural grass over there.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So
we'll keep you posted on that.
On the other side of that, let's talk about BYU baseball. They're 2-6. They went 0-4 at Louisiana Lafayette. So they play these big games in series. Today, BYU's game at Utah Valley was canceled. Obviously, right?
Yeah.
You're not playing any baseball in Utah Valley right now with the weather that we've had. And then the home opener, Omaha at BYU, Thursday, 3 p.m. Mountain. We probably ought to just say weather permitting, right?
Yeah. They might take it to St. George. They might have to.
Have you talked to our buddy Kevin?
No, but I watched his forecast, and it doesn't look good. I think we're going to get a lot of snow tomorrow, at least here in Provo.
So are you and I going to get out of here? You and I are heading to Vegas tomorrow.
I hope we get out of here.
Our Bruce is picking us up. Bruce Nielsen, who's our ride to the airport, is picking us up at 3:15 to go.
That'll be great.
I hope the snow's kind of managed by then.
I do too.
So
gymnastics defeated Utah State Friday night. This week, Alaska is at BYU. That's Wednesday, tomorrow, 11 a.m. Mountain Time. You can see it on BYU TV. Women's golf finished second at the Gunrock Invitational in Sacramento. They had to cut it short to 18 holes due to the weather. This is a good team.
Right.
And they're playing Alicia May Mateo, 5th place. Next is the Julie Inkster at the Meadow Club Invitational in Fairfax, California, Monday and Tuesday of next week. That's the cool thing about golf. We talked about, they go to the nice warm places.
Right.
While we're shoveling stuff, they're teeing off.
Hey, Alaska is coming to play BYU or to face BYU in gymnastics.
Yeah.
That's the only team anywhere that could come and go, hey, you guys don't have much snow.
Right. Yeah, what are you guys complaining about?
Feel like, hey, it feels plenty warm here. We don't even know what you guys are even talking about right now. So
on this day in history, and before we get to that, we want to encourage everybody. Hey, we're over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Thank you. Please keep going there and subscribing if you haven't. It's free. Facebook, it's free. Like us there. Twitch, it's free. Like us there. And that'll allow us to keep doing this show as we plan to do it for years and years to come.
Right.
And it's just, we're trying to give you as much access in the prime time. You know, BYU Sports Nation's in the day, which is great. We're in the prime time, and as a live stream, we can go back and forth with everybody and answer questions and all that stuff. And as we get into the Big 12, that's going to be huge. Just turn on the mic and talk.
And one of our viewers, Greg Romano, commented, he says, hey, thanks for hosting all these great guests. He said that Marie Osmond segment was insightful and hilarious. The athletes' memories and stories are not only personal but often poignant. We're grateful to have you all listening in and doing that. And one of the reasons we can get these guests is because the show's in the evening.
Yeah.
We're on some of the shows we're doing over at BYU. They're not available in the day to come on Sports Nation with us, but this format has been really good. We're grateful to all of you for joining. We're really grateful that we reached 1,000 subscribers on YouTube. Let's keep that rolling.
And you can go find all our interviews at ysguys.com. Danny Ainge, Jimmer Fredette, Marie Osmond. The list goes on and on and on. And we've had 2 great guests tonight with Sione Puhua and Kaylin Hall. That's just outstanding. All right, on this day, on February 28th, a couple of interesting tidbits, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yep, 1849, the first boatload of gold prospectors arrived in California. The San Francisco 49ers get their name from the California Gold Rush, right?
They showed up looking for everything that was shiny, and you know what? A lot of them found some stuff.
They found some stuff. So
1850 on this day, the University of Utah opened its doors. Founded by Brigham Young.
Of course.
The Utes are coached by a player who graduated from Brigham Young And in their last meeting, they were defeated by Brigham
I'm
Young.
glad you added that last thing. So in 19, you know what? Before I do 1940, I got to do 1935. In 1935, Kirk Fowler was born.
That's right. Happy birthday, Kirk.
Happy birthday to my
the
dad.
patriarch of the game.
Yeah, 88 years old today. Is that right? Is it 88?
88. That's awesome.
Am I adding that up right?
It sounds right. It feels right.
Wow, that's even crazy to me.
88.
So as soon as Dave and I are done here, I'm going to run down and celebrate the end of his birthday celebration. 88, 1935. So now I can go to 1940.
Let's do it.
Because we're doing it in order. First televised basketball game. Pittsburgh beat Fordham 57-37 at Madison Square Garden. Game was televised by NBC on what is today the WNBC New York channel.
So on this day, the first college game. Now you can't turn the TV on without 8
They're
college
everywhere.
games all over the place.
Yep.
1967 on this day, Wilt Chamberlain makes his NBA record 35th consecutive basket.
Yeah, and how many of them are dunks? Well, they had to stop dunking because he kept breaking the backboard, right?
Yeah, and I'm trying to think of the one he missed, but he made 35 straight field goals.
Yeah, unbelievable.
In the NBA with guys in his face. He was big and awesome and all that stuff. Still made 35 straight.
Yeah, and he had a 100-point game.
Yeah.
That's crazy. So you see Dame Lillard had 71 the other night?
Yeah, and they knew what reminded me. Jimmer did it 3 times over in
It's crazy.
overseas.
So 1983, the final episode of MASH aired on CBS, 125 million viewers. I remember.
Yeah.
Like we were watching. You had to.
In Utah, if you grew up in Utah and watched Channel 5 after the news, long before the talk shows invaded, they played MASH reruns. And I remember I would hear that music. I would be wherever, going to bed or whatever, and you hear the music come on. So then you know you miss sports. And that was kind of a bummer. But it was very soothing.
Yeah.
And so today we said goodbye to MASH. 125 million. And that was back in 83. That gives you an idea how big of a show that was.
So now we're going to do birthdays. I put Kirk Fowler's birthday in great events on this day rather than just he
deserved it.
No, I didn't want it to. I wanted it to stand out as a great event in history, not just a birthday. So now we'll do the birthdays.
1906, Bugsy Siegel, born in Brooklyn, helped turn Las Vegas into a mob hangout.
Yeah.
And now they're getting a Super Bowl, so mission accomplished.
You and I will be there for the rest of this week. I've got to go back next week for another meeting.
Yeah, that's a lot of Vegas.
Mario Andretti, IndyCar racer, F1 champion in 1978. He was born in 1940 on this day.
So Formula One's going to Vegas in November.
I heard this.
And I heard a story that the rooms where the windows face the strip where they're racing this thing, those prices are jacked up. Because people can sit there and watch the race in their room. And there's $1 million packages offered by these hotels for 4 people to come in that week, have a sweet seat, a butler, and all this stuff just around Formula One. Now, they get the Super Bowl next year, but they're saying Formula One will be the biggest event ever in Las Vegas.
Well, Formula One, like in Europe, is crazy, especially like that Monte Carlo Grand Prix. A little ditty on Mario Andretti. So I grew up not far from the Watkins Motor Speedway, Watkins Glen, where the U.S. Grand Prix was run, and Mario was racing in that circuit. And you had to have like a point system where you win the overall title, and you get I don't know how many millions of dollars when you win it. If Mario wins the U.S. Grand Prix, he wins the title for that year, the overall points title for that year. He won. My family owned a restaurant not far from there. He brought his whole race team into the back.
Nice.
And he fed them all. And then he left a regular tip on the bill. And then he came over to me and he said, "I did a great job helping us out, son."
You were the waiter?
Yeah, I was bussing.
Bussing.
So you did a great job of helping us out. We really appreciated it. And he handed me 3 $100 bills.
Nice.
And handed them to me.
Nice.
So
that's a great memory.
Yeah, I'll always remember Mario Andretti for his kindness because he did that for me.
$300 tip. 1954, Brian Billick, former BYU tight end, Super Bowl champion head coach of the Baltimore Ravens, born today.
1955, Adrian Dantley, the great jazz legend, was born 1955.
Scored a lot of buckets. Yep. Our Wise Guys inspirational quote of the week is from Magic Johnson. Seemed appropriate as we head to Vegas for the tournament.
Yep. He said, "Ask not what your teammates can do for you. Ask what you can do for your teammates."
How about that?
Is that a take on a Winston Churchill quote? No, that's
John F. Kennedy. Yeah. But then Magic turned it around, and he was that kind of player. As good as he was, he made the guys around him better. So did Larry Bird, and that's why those both are legends. But ask not what your teammates can do for you, ask what you can do for your teammates. That would be words to live by for every team going to the WCC tournament.
Magic Johnson, like we talk about who's the greatest player of all time, the greatest teammate of all time may have been Magic Johnson.
Yeah.
Because of his mentality that everybody needed to be involved. I talked to Pat Riley one time. I had a chance to be sitting next to him for about a half an hour. We were just killing time. And he said to me, at the time, he's like, Michael Jordan's the greatest player of all time, but if I was going to have a draft right now, I think I would draft Magic because he's the greatest teammate. Like, he's the guy that makes everybody on your team better, and I think you want to build a team around that guy.
He could play all 5 positions for the Lakers.
Which was really amazing. He was an amazing teammate. Magic Johnson, I think the greatest teammate of all time.
Our thanks to Sione Pauha and Kaylin Hall, our guest tonight. The podcast will be up tomorrow. You'll want to listen to it, and there'll be clips throughout the week on our on YouTube. But what great stories, and I really am excited to see the BYU defense.
And now
we've now had them all except for Gennaro.
Everybody knows how to say Sione now.
Yeah, he gave us a lesson.
He's like Pouha, and he says you say the ha.
The ha, and
Pouha.
so we'll get Gennaro on maybe after spring camp, but. What an infusion of energy from this defensive staff.
Yeah, and you know, Kalen mentioned it in a big way about how he thinks it'll make a big difference next season as they enter the Big 12. So fun stuff. Great guests tonight. Thank you all for being with us tonight. And those of you that weren't with us tonight, if you're listening to this on the podcast later in the week or coming back to the sites and watching it again, we're grateful for all of you. We hope you have a great week.
Next week, our friend Kyle Van Noy will be our guest on the Wise Guys. We'll see you in Vegas starting Thursday.
If you get bored, just turn on the TV pretty much any time for the next 5 days and you'll see Dave and I.
Yeah, that's what we do.
That's what we do.
We live for this time of year. Thank you for watching. Have a great week. We'll see you back next week with a tournament recap. We're going to go find out and see what's going to happen, and we'll talk about it next week. And, of course, football, because we'll be 2 days into spring practice.
Yes.
So some updates on that, too. Slovis will be throwing the football.
Yep.
Be exciting stuff. Good night, everyone. Thank you for being with us.
We'll see you.